Okay, the last bit of this podcast on solving the great food puzzle with innovation, impact, and place. Let's look at one more innovation then. This is on taxing people to encourage healthy eating. Wow, can we really do that? There's some nice looking tropical fruits, a papaya here, and maybe oranges and lemon and tomatoes and grated carrot, etc. This is from Tonga Food System Type 4. Did I read the food systems? Did I skip that part somehow? If I did, I should not do that. I did, didn't I? Okay, so that's a blunder. Let's correct that right now. This is about something else. We didn't actually read food system types. Oops. So let me pause right here and come back and continue. But let's read this first, okay? So here we are looking at Tonga Food System Type 4. The innovation of taxing is a policy and financial innovation that sustains practices, and providing financial incentives and taxes to improve consumption was the lever that was used. The impacts were incremental and smaller changes. Innovations that could amplify the impact when combined with disruptive policy innovations to make healthy foods more available or promote consumption of traditional local foods. This could lead to path-breaking impacts that disincentivize overconsumption of less healthy foods. In addition, with the creation of nutrient profile models, this will create architectural impacts by helping to formulate a new tax policy and informing front-of-pack labeling of packaged foods. So I didn't completely skip the types of food systems, but I didn't read it in detail and said I will show a table. So let me add that table here as we pause and come back. So I've put this now in the front part of the PPT file, so I will read it and jump back to the end where we left off. Overview of how the 7 food system types were identified using 6 variables chosen for this study to inform the typology. We read the typology already. So food system types and example countries. Type 1, Brazil, Colombia, Indonesia. Food systems of this type are characterized by large numbers of smallholders, even if industrialized food production dominates land area. Okay, so nations are home to large threatened hotspots and or reserves of irrecoverable carbon. Consumption is currently slightly over planetary boundaries, and food security is moderate. So many technical words. We'll define irrecoverable carbon later on in well, we already defined it here. I'm saying as if this will appear in the beginning, but that will happen only in a classroom. So they have planetary boundary is something we already defined. Type 2 is from Kenya, India, and Pakistan. Food systems of this type are characterized primarily by smallholders. Nations have fewer hotspots or threatened irrecoverable carbon, perhaps because of degraded landscapes. Consumption is within planetary boundaries, but food security is low. There is sufficient arable land to be self-sufficient with a plant-based diet. It's not planet-based diet. Type 3, Ecuador, Costa Rica, and Japan. So it's not directly a rich versus poor, it's a mix. Food systems of this type are a mix of fully industrialized and emerging and diversifying systems. Nations are home to large, well-managed hotspots or reserves of irrecoverable carbon. Food security is high, and diets are within or slightly over planetary boundaries. So Ecuador obviously is owner of Galapagos and has a lot of environmental regulations for protecting hotspots. Costa Rica is the same. Biodiversity hotspot. Type 4, China and Mexico. Food systems of this type are diverse and a mix of smallholder and industrialized systems. These large nations are mixed in terms of the presence of large hotspots or irrecoverable carbon. Food security is high, but diets exceed planetary boundaries. There is sufficient arable land to be self-sufficient with a planet-based diet. So it keeps saying planet-based diet. I'm assuming that just means, let me see if planet-based has been defined as something other than plant-based. Planet-based probably means staying within the planetary boundaries, I suspect. Okay, so that would be just annoying definition because that's new. Oops, cancel, my friend. Planet based. Oh, come on. I am kind of getting hammered by this app that I use because Google Drive has disconnected this Apple as a security threat. So now I cannot manage. Okay, planet-based. Yeah, so Johan Rockström et al. Have a paper called Planet Proofing Global Food Systems, where they introduced this term planet-based diet, which basically probably means not exceeding the planetary boundaries. Oh well, sorry about that. Okay, sorry. So again, coming back to type 5, Canada, United States and Australia. Food systems of this type are fully industrialized. These are large nations with moderate to large hotspots or reserves of irrecoverable carbon. Food security is high, but diets exceed planetary boundaries. There is sufficient arable land to be self-sufficient with a planet-based diet. Ireland, Poland, Sweden are in type 6. Food systems of this type are fully industrialized. So it's not rich versus poor at all, as I was implying before. These are smaller nations with limited hotspots or reserves of irrecoverable carbon. Food security is high, but diets exceed planetary boundaries, so that's the main constraint here. There is sufficient arable land to be self-sufficient with a planet-based diet. So I will come back and add a little clip on planet-based diets at the end of this podcast, or as a new podcast. Type 7 finally is Iceland, Singapore and UAE, which is a desert land. Food systems of this type are fully industrialized. These are small nations with limited hotspots or reserves of irrecoverable carbon. Food security is high, but diets exceed planetary boundaries. There is not sufficient arable land to be self-sufficient with a planet-based diet. So if you just quit meat, importing food and so on, and rely on this planet-based diet, what happens? Actually, I have one more slide to show. So let's conclude this podcast. So we already talked about, oops, so now I have to go all the way to the end. So we finished here with Tonga and food system type 4. So let's read about innovation pitfalls. In this study, we offer guidance on how to find the right innovation with the right level of impact in the right place. Innovations, no matter how compelling they may appear, are not always fit to every context. In some cases, certain innovations will fail to produce the desired impacts, but a greater risk is that innovations produce unintended negative outcomes, such as further environmental harm, social injustice, or both. Knowing the difference between what will work and what could have negative impacts can require extensive local expertise, which means that the right people need to be at the table to challenge assumptions and advocate for their desired futures. Here we draw attention to 3 unintended consequences that are being experienced in food systems around the world, but that can be avoided if the right people are at the table. Enclosure, over-innovation, and Jevons paradox, which we already defined as moral hazard or excess consumption resulting from efficiencies, and so on and so forth. So what are the things then? Right impact, right place, and right innovation to close the gaps, and you can start from inside out. There are a few points here. Are there any potential unintended consequence of implementing this innovation? Are all the stakeholders receptive to this innovation? Is there a robust innovation ecosystem to successfully implement this innovation? Has your innovation had success in similar countries or food system types? Will your innovation affect one or more transformation levers? Okay. Outside you have, will your innovation help close one or more of the gaps? Do you need a sustaining or disruptive innovation to achieve your goals? Do you want to continue with the ways that are already good for the food system, or do you need to disrupt it? What types of impact, path breaking, diversifying, incremental, architectural is needed? Okay, so what level within the system are you trying to change? Is it superficial or is it deeper? Do you know your food system type? Have you considered who is at the table to successfully implement this innovation? And finally, will your innovation amplify the highest impact transformation lever? Okay, so this is the story, and as I said, I'll add a little blurb on planet-based diet since it's used heavily here. As I've commented elsewhere, these planetary boundaries ideas are not universally accepted, but now it's become very popular with, especially in the European countries. It has some value for sure, but my complaint always is that if you go globally average everything and say we are exceeding the planetary boundary, how do you then go back and unravel the local patterns, and how do you implement solutions that are place-based, regionally relevant, culturally relevant, equitable, just, and so on, to add up to coming back below the planetary boundary? That's very tricky. Anyway, it may be good as a monitoring tool, and we'll have to see how it evolves. But the group led by Rockstrom et al. Keep adding more and more things to it. I have several podcasts on planetary boundaries that you can listen to if you're interested in more. Okay, see you in the next podcast to just make a brief summary of the planet-based diets. Okay.